All right, we're talking about our can. I'm covering the shadow from the light glaring so you can see it better. So we're going to be making this out of polymer clay. You're not going to get a whole lot of clay. It doesn't take a whole lot of clay to do this here project, so you won't be getting a huge amount. To start off, you're going to take a little more than half of it, and you're going to start making a cylinder. To do that, I'm just rolling my clay, conditioning it so it's nice and soft and malleable. There we are. Get a ball, roll a cylinder. And I do want one end rounded, so I'm just going to kind of flatten the one end and just keep the other end rounded. And the reason for this is when we look at a spray can, it has a rounded top to it. So it's not a hugely rounded top there, but it is a little bit. I'm going to take a smaller piece here, and I'm going to actually roll out, I'm going to pinch it there and roll it, a really thin coil. Sometimes we call them snakes, sometimes we call them other just coils, noodles, all those different wonderful kinds of names for them. And I'm going to roll out a fairly thin one. Now, we're going to have some tools to use. If you notice, this is even thinner than the silver part on this here tool. So it's a thin coil. And I'm going to take this, actually I lied, I'm going to write in the bottom my initials so that I know whose piece this is. So there's my first initial and my last initial. Now that I've got my coil rolled out and my initials on it, I'm going to take my coil and I'm going to put it around the base of my spray can. This creates that bottom area. I have a little bit extra, so I just take it and pinch it off. Using my tool, I smooth it out so it attaches. I'm going to push it on just a little bit so it adheres and stays, because we want to make sure that stays. We don't want it to pop off. So my next thing is I need to add a little bit more to get another coil going. And so I'm going to roll out another coil. I'm actually going to use several more coils to finish this off. But the next one is going around the top of the can area. So it's a nice thin coil. I'm going to put it around this here area right here. That gives me the top part of my piece. And I have it right there, all good and happy. Again, I'm taking my tool here, kind of smoothing it in, kind of press it in a little bit, pushing it down to the thing so it stays nice and attached. We want to make sure it stays attached. And I'm just adjusting here to make sure it's all the way around. As you can see, I moved my coil down here a little bit. I'm going to move it back so it looks like a coil around the base, as even as I can. So there's that. Now, I'm going to take a smaller piece. It's really tiny, honestly. It's really tiny. And I'm going to make a smaller cylinder. As I'm making this cylinder, I'm going to kind of squish it down again, however I want. I'm going to kind of taper one end so it's a little bit smaller. As you can see here, a little bit smaller, like a cone. And that's going to go up here at the top. I have attached it there. I'm going to take my tool and kind of mash it down into it. By mashing it down into it, I'm making sure that when I bake this, it's not going to fly off. By doing a cone with the cone part down, I'm creating the small nozzle part of the spray can. So it may not look like a whole lot, but it is there. It is fragile. That is something you all have to remember. It is fragile. So we want to be delicate. And then I'm going to poke a hole so I know where my nozzle is going to come out. I now have this little bit of coil over here that I've taken. I'm going to make it just a teensy width bit thinner. And I'm going to take it and do another coil rim right up here so that we have our beautiful upper layer to our stuff. And I'm going to gently tap it down using my tool to make sure that it's going to stay on when I bake it. That right there is the entirety of the spray can. It doesn't take much. And look, I still have lots of clay left over. Leftover clay comes back to me. Don't just play with it. We'll bake this and then we'll be coloring it in.